They got a tank. I'm sorry. Did somebody just say it?
Spoilers, the following video is mostly intended for humor. I nitpick, make jokes, and generally just have fun pointing out things that don't quite add up. That said, I may make a few actually valid points along the way. I'll leave it to you to decide which is which. Welcome to the channel, I'm Haze. I talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Fast and Furious 6, the 2013 action fantasy sci-fi that has almost nothing to do with street racing. So how this works is I'm going to go through the movie and point out all the interesting things that I can find in Fast and Furious 6. So the movie starts off with what looks like a car race between Dom and Brian on the windy Spanish mountains. Turns out, they were making their way to Mia because she has just given birth. But here's the thing, why couldn't they just take one car? I mean, I know these guys love cars and racing, but now seems like the time not to do that. Anyway, they're in the Canary Islands. And just how the Fast and Furious series has very little to do with street racing, the Canary Islands have even less to do with canaries. The name comes from the Latin word canariae, which translates as dog. So is Hobbs getting out of a vehicle then walking and talking while not looking at the person he's talking to gonna be a thing? Hobbs refers to Riley as the youngest RSO ever in Afghanistan. They don't say Riley's age in the movie, but let's assume somewhere around late 20s to early 30s. For Riley to be an RSO or regional security officer at that age, especially in a high profile post like Afghanistan, I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but it is pretty improbable. Since an RSO is a senior level position within the diplomatic security services, it requires many years of training plus many years of experience with management and leadership. Dude just picked up a man about the same size as him and threw him across the room like how you'd throw your little brother across the room after ignoring the "don't try this at home" warning on WWE. Also, the amount of damage to that room, how is this man not bleeding? And why is his shirt still clean? Also, how is Hobbs gonna reel off Riley's impressive resume and then proceed to call her woman? Bro, she outranks you by a significant margin. You need to put some respect on her name.
Nice weather and no extradition.
Wrong. Spain has had an extradition treaty with the United States since 1970. Anyway, we're at the plot-defining scene of the movie where Hobbs gets Dom to help him catch Shaw. But the real question is, why? Remember how Hobbs was supposed to be this badass tracker that never misses his mark? The guy who wouldn't let Dom and Brian off the hook because he ain't made that way? And now we're supposed to believe that of all the law enforcement agencies in the entire world, Hobbs with his whole chest thinks that the only people who can help him catch Shaw is Dom's crew? Really? The same people he spent the whole last movie chasing down and only got away because he gave them 24 hours grace? Which, by the way, this is way more than 24 hours later, so that whole "you weren't that hard to find"
was a fucking lie.
These are the people you're asking for help? Are you dumb? Also, Hobbs told Dom that the photo of Letty was taken a week ago. Now at the end of Fast 5, Monica Fuentes tells Hobbs it happened that morning. So this is a week later. And in that week, Hobbs went from being obsessed with finding Dom to chasing Shaw across 12 countries and 4 continents, just to end up asking the criminals he was hunting down in the first place for help. Now you might be thinking, he's chasing Shaw to get to Letty to find Dom, but Letty died 2 movies ago before Hobbs was sent after Dom. So her possibly still being alive holds next to no guarantee she'd know anything useful. And the fact that he's standing in front of Dom right now means he didn't need to get to Letty to find Dom. So how about this for a novel idea? Do the job you were hired to do. Arrest Dom and done the thing. This movie could have been like 8 minutes. Max. Also, this has got to be top 5 most unrealistic things the Fast and Furious series has ever done, when Dom's new girlfriend tells him to go look for his old girlfriend while she helps babysit his nephew. Mate, whose fantasy is this? Also, Elena Nieves is a former police officer, so why is she sitting this one out? Especially when Rico and Tego ain't there, Mia's on mother duties, and Leslie's joined the dark side. They might need some extra hands. Anyway, that is a Harley-Davidson XR 1200X. However, this film is set somewhere between 2008 and 2013, and back back then the XR1200X had the words Harley Davidson printed on the tank and not the wordless logo, which would suggest that the bike is fitted with aftermarket and or custom parts, and that would be at least one thing that makes sense in this movie. What's really interesting though is that Harley Davidson later officially started using the wordless logo around 2019, so actually that's a pretty accurate prediction of the future.
But I'm going with you.
You said you were gonna leave this life behind.
No. You said he was leaving this life behind. Furthermore, if Dom wanted Brian to stay out of it, then why go to him with the news about Letty? Should have just paid Don Omar and Tego Calderon the money they asked for. Allegedly.
You sure about these guys?
Nope.
So Hobbs recruited a bunch of criminals because they were the only ones who can help him catch another criminal, but he's not actually sure about the criminals he's recruited. So do you have a contingency plan? Because you know you should have a contingency plan. Since they're in London, none of those things are $1, but from here, it looks like a £2 coin. Also, IMDb's goof page states that some of the chocolates in a vending machine aren't sold in the UK and only in the USA, which is not exactly true. Whereas a typical local store or supermarket might not sell them, London still has a lot of places that specialize in American sweets, so this tracks. After 2 movies and 25 minutes, the weapons expert finally gets to fire a gun. Tej and Roman died in this scene, or they would have if they were using regular seatbelts, but they're actually using racing harnesses, which would probably save their lives in a crash like that. That said, Roman must have got at least a broke arm or something. Also, they're supposed to be in London, but that's the Queensway Tunnel in Liverpool, which is about 200 miles away from London. Also, why is the number 4 bus in Liverpool? Because if he's going to the Barbican, you're lost, mate. Actually, to be fair, the Barbican is not that far from Liverpool Street, so I think I can see where the confusion came from.
See, man, when a woman starts shooting at you, that's a clear sign to back the fuck off.
I mean, you should probably back off when anybody starts shooting at you, really.
That didn't sound like a normal engine.
It was a turbo diesel.
Hydraulics.
Or magnetic suspension.
But who not only has access to...
Of course, this is why Hobbs needed Toretto's team, because finding Shaw was about knowing how his engine sounds. So the thing about the 5.45x18 FMJ Spitzer bullet is that it's actually an armor-piercing round capable of penetrating 30 to 45 layers of soft Kevlar, and yet it couldn't penetrate Dom's shoulder deep enough for him to need a medical professional to remove it. Personally, I'm not sure buying all the cars and making him take his clothes off really does anything. It's a minor embarrassment in front of people he doesn't know and would probably never see again. Also, that's a Carl F. Buchera watch, which start from around £4,000. So if he can just give that away with little hesitation, then you know the commission he's making from all those car sales, he can probably just take the next few years off, at least. But what I really want to know is, what happened to his shoes? He had his shoes on, then all of a sudden, his shoes are gone. Where did they go? Wait, are we supposed to believe that Letty had no idea they were sent there to shoot up the place? She's been rolling with his crew for at least 1 week, 1 movie, and up to about 90 minutes, and we're supposed to believe that she has no clue what type of people they are. After she shot Dom unprovoked. Ain't no shame in getting beaten by a better fighter, but yeah, I wouldn't tell nobody either. Alright, so now what I want to know is, what happened between Fast and Furious and Fast and Furious 6 for Stasiak to even consider helping Brian? Because I don't believe it's all about getting credit for Shaw. Since DSS are chasing Shaw is outside of Stasiak's jurisdiction. So what happened to make Stasiak risk his career to help a wanted fugitive that broke his nose? When Stasiak said, "I'm tempted to settle for you," that was the right answer. Arrest Brian, get the credit and the promotion for that, then cut a deal with Brian to get information on Shaw, then take the credit for that too. Instead, you're just out here looking goofy with another broken nose. And we still don't know if Slapjack paid his rent. For real, we need somebody to check on Slapjack before he drops off his kids. Anyway, Brian didn't bury Letty. Dude was only at the funeral in an official capacity. Also, if Braga ran everything for Shaw and Shaw knew Brian planted Letty in Braga's gang, how come Shaw didn't know Letty used to roll with Dom, or even know anything about Dom's crew? Or, if he does know, then to what end is he pretending he doesn't? This movie could have been like 40 minutes. Max. I remember how in Fast and Furious, Braga said that any of these guys in here would die for Braga, especially him, and now he's crying like a pansy after getting poked in the leg. So I've never been in an illegal street race, and if I have, I wouldn't admit it here. But I do know this. There are potentially several places in London you could hold an illegal street race. However, King Charles Street is not one of them. Basically anywhere in or near central London, forget about it. Way too busy all the time. And they got a DJ and dancers? Nah, this got shut down before Dom even got there. Plus, they said it themselves, it is literally one of the most surveilled cities in the world. This race did not happen. But good to know the number 4 bus made it back to the right route.
This better have been worth it.
More than you'll ever know.
Really? Man risks his career, takes another broken nose, helps him out when he really didn't have to, and gives him a lift back, and this bozo can't even say thank you. Ryan is not a good person. Anyway, now we're over halfway through the movie and we don't really know why Shaw recruited Letty. I mean, Braga said she had lost her memory and was the perfect girl. But perfect for what? What exactly does she do for Shaw? Not kill his enemies? Shaw has already threatened Letty once about making a mistake. Then right after that she goes showing her first scars to Dom. Memory or not, Shaw has no reason to keep Letty alive right now.
Woman, you keep that up, I'm gonna be out of a job.
You should be out of a job now. She outranks you.
When they drive that truck in here, I want to come crashing down on them like the walls of Jericho.
Also, the walls of Jericho fell when the Israelites marched around it once a day for 6 days and then 7 times on the 7th day. So what's interesting is that at this point, Tej has never met Letty. Now I'm guessing Dom has showed him some old photos, so that's how she knows what she looks like. But in the last movie, Han made a reference to something Tej said when Han wasn't there. And now in this movie, Tej is IDing someone he's never met. That's interesting to me. What's also interesting is how there's a tank on the road shooting cannons and everyone else is just driving as normal. Simplemente una regular día en las calles de Español. Oh, so now you notice the tank on the road, huh? A la gente solo le importa cuando las afecta. Ay, ay, ay. Also, how did Roman's car not get flattened by the tank? You know, there's probably a scientific explanation for all of this. And I think that explanation is magic. It's just magic at this point. People often ask, when did the Fast and Furious films lose reality? And for me, I maintain that the Fast and Furious films never had reality, not even in the first movie. But if I had to pick a point where it lost any semblance of anything that could maybe in some convoluted roundabout way be explained, this is it. And to be honest, I'm also thinking, am I sure? Maybe I've forgotten something. I probably have. But for now, this is the point where it's just magic. From here on out, the answer to at least 95% of anything is going to be, it's magic. Dom isn't Superman or Batman. He's Paul Daniels. And if you know who I'm talking about, make sure your pension is in order. It's not too late until it is. Oh, and by the way, you know how I know Paul Daniels was the real deal? This guy pulled off the greatest magic trick of all time by getting Debbie McGee to marry him. Yeah, let's see Penn and Teller explain that one. Anyway, I know they put these "nobody makes me do anything I don't want to do" scenes in movies so we don't think too much about the fact that Brian planted a civilian with a highly connected and dangerous drug dealer. But if no one makes Letty do anything she doesn't want to do, that would mean that after it became abundantly clear what type of person Owen Shaw is, she still wanted to roll with him. Nah, take her to prison. She clearly did not understand the assignment.
Come in, babe.
Of course.
So this is now the second time that Hobbs' female partner ended up betraying him. This guy really has poor judgment of character. Also, are we now supposed to believe that Owen Shaw, the mastermind behind Braga, the man who's always one step ahead, the man who you don't get close to unless he wants you to, we're now supposed to believe that this guy didn't have a backup plan for if there's no signal? Like, if you don't hear from me by such and such a time, kill everyone? You know, something like that? What happened to give these guys the respect they deserve or it weakens us? Dude should have taken his own advice. So I think a lot has already been said about this scene. In particular, for them to be traveling that fast for that long would put the length of the runway somewhere between 18 and 26 miles. And for comparison, the longest runway in Spain is 2.9 miles and the longest runway in the world is 3.1 miles. But what I want to know is, if Riley was working with Shaw all along, then why did she go after Letty at the warehouse? Because first I was thinking, Letty probably doesn't know about Riley and Riley's got to keep up the act, which would also explain why Letty gets the upper hand in the fight because Riley would have been holding back. But then this happened, and now we're supposed to believe that the youngest ever regional security officer just stood there for a whole 8 seconds waiting for Letty to shoot her out the airplane. After that fight, you're gonna end it with magic, and there's no way those 3 cars are doing anything to stop that airplane taking off. This plane should be in Jamaica by now. Also, Giselle did not die in this scene, and I ain't just saying that because I already know she comes back at the end of Fast X. It's because a child could survive that fall. Well, maybe not Slapjack's kids, you know? Just saying. Anyway, at most she got a broken bone or 2, cuts, scars, bruising, maybe concussion, but death? In my unprofessional opinion, that seems unlikely. They just don't go back to check. They do all those cool stunts but can't be bothered to drive the 8 miles back to retrieve the body. In the same movie where they find out Leslie was alive the whole time. The same movie where Dom just survived an exploding airplane. Not one of them is thinking, you know, maybe we should be doubly sure. So the movie ends with Hobbs confirming they're all free to go after they're all back in LA, which means when Hobbs said words like pardon, walk out with him.
That was a fucking lie.
Plus Hobbs is back with the first woman that betrayed him, so nothing learned there. Also, what was the point of having Dom shack up with some next chick just to have Letty come back a couple of movies later like, thanks for keeping my seat warm? What happened to loyalty? And speaking of unrealistic Fast and Furious moments, there is no way your old ting and your new old ting are having an amicable discussion. For real, whose fantasy is this? Oh, and it turns out the guy who crashed into Han in Tokyo actually got out of his car, walked right past the crash, threw a pendant at Han, and then made a phone call. All while neither Sean, nor Neela, nor any of the camera operators, nor apparently this passerby who was looking in the car presumably to check on the driver, noticed anything. Magic! But that's what I think of Fast and Furious 6. What do you think of Fast and Furious 6? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.